Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Bob Scarborough.
And we are the FAIRtax
Guys.
Guys. Oops, wait a minute. I got my cube in the wrong place. This is my instability of the tax code color changing cube. And you've got
fascinating.
Yeah, it is. The only one.
You'll never be able to get it
You're
to
right.
the right colors.
It's the only Rubik's Cube I can't solve, but that's the way it goes. So,
but you're trying. I know you try. I know you absolutely try to beat that.
Can you believe it? We made it through 2021. This is our last FAIRtax Power Radio episode of the calendar year. And this is going to be your first one as we look back at the tax proposal Hall of Shame. But
I'm ready.
All right. I bet you are. But it's kind of something about 2021 that we just can't let go by without looking back one more time at our fallen friend, Ron Molero. And you didn't work with him quite as closely as I did, but I'm sure you've got some thoughts on the matter.
Ron was an encourager, and I'm sure that followed him throughout his life personally and in the careers that he had, the teacher part, the truck driver part. I can't imagine having come on board with the FAIRtax and knowing you through your brother here in Winston-Salem. And then here comes Ron Molero, whose name I have a hard time spelling, but whose kindness and friendship, just from the very first time we talked on the phone and the first email conversations that we had, it was like somebody I'd known all my life.
Mm-hmm.
Just an encourager. I think if I had to come up with one word that I would use to describe to someone who didn't know Ron, that he was an encourager.
Mm-hmm.
Super positive and someone I'll never forget, and am blessed to have known for the short period of time that we had an opportunity to work together.
All right. Well, I've got a short little video here that I put together with AFFT President Steve Hayes and board members Jade Wally and Randy Fisher looking back at Ron's life. So let's just go ahead and roll that here. And as FAIRtax Power Radio looks back on 2021, obviously the one big event that everybody remembers is the unexpected loss of Ron Molero, a good friend to all of us, and one of the most dedicated FAIRtax supporters you'll ever find anywhere in the country. And it just wouldn't be right to review the year without looking back one more time at our good friend Ron Molero. So to that end, we have AFFT President Steve Hayes, AFFT board member Jade Wally with me here. Randy Fisher was unable to join us. He sent us his own little video that we're going to splice into this as well. And when we're all done, I've got a statement for Maiellaro that y'all would like to hear. So, Steve, you're up first.
All right. Well, I first met Ron and Elaine together when they arrived at a board meeting for Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And the one thing that was obvious from the beginning was that Ron was a really special person. Ron was one of those people that, that if you didn't like Ron, there was probably something really wrong with you, because he was very much a person that cared and wanted to help. And it didn't really matter how small or big, he wanted to help. And that was the thing that communicated so much. He was very kind, but he was also very, very effective. And I know, Bob, you had an opportunity to work with him more closely on the radio show, but Ron always appeared, he always performed well, and he always kept going after more and more support for FAIRtax. He was an incredible volunteer, but he was also just an incredible person. And part of what we're doing, since we're all volunteers, it really matters that we get to associate with people like Ron. And I feel so fortunate that I was able to be around Ron, spend time with Ron and with Elaine. And I think it was an incredible loss. And I really, really think he made a very strong contribution. And when the FAIRtax is passed, his contribution will be a large part of what happened.
Amen. Your turn, Jade. Go.
Yeah, Bob, I met Ron in 2017, and when I met you two for the first time. And the thing I loved about Ron is he was so detailed, and he'd always bring in an interesting aspect for you two to talk about on FAIRtax Power Radio. You had the skill, you knew how to set it and stop it, and you had the perfect radio voice. He would bring in the interesting article or something fun or unique, a different angle to talk about. And I would echo every one of Steve's comments. He was so special. And I think the word, I was thinking about this presentation, this little recording, and what's one word we could use to describe Ron? And as it relates to the FAIRtax, I would say that word is passion. And Merriam-Webster defines passion as a strong feeling of enthusiasm or excitement for something or about doing something. And I just think that sums up Rob to a T, and he will be so missed, and wish all of his family well.
All right, let's go ahead and splice Randy Fisher into here.
I've been asked to say a few words about my friend and someone that I worked very closely with for more than 5 years, and that is Ron Molero. And I've thought about this, and I think there's only one way for me to describe my impressions and my recollection of Ron. Ron was a New Yorker, and unlike what you would expect when a New Yorker is in the South, Ron developed a graciousness and a comfortable style about him in communicating the FAIRtax to the thousands of people that he communicated with over his time of being a FAIRtax supporter. He was full of grit, though, so don't mistake graciousness for a lack of intensity or lack of grit. Ron had both, and he combined those three qualities, graciousness, grit, and relaxed expression, to be one of the most effective FAIRtax communicators that I can remember in the 20 years that I've been doing this. So, Ron, we love you and we miss you. Take care.
Okay, gentlemen. Tell you what, we could talk about Ron all day, but we don't have all day on the program. I did offer Elaine Maiellaro the chance to come on camera here, and as I figured she would, she declined that invitation, but she did send a statement she wanted me to read. So her words here: I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for your prayers, your kind words, emails, friendship, and donations to the FAIRtax in Ron's name. You've given me strength through those very thoughts and actions, and I will never forget them. Ron was a man of intelligence, common sense, and passion, and one of the things he was passionate about was the FAIRtax. He believed the FAIRtax was the common sense way to return lost freedoms to this wonderful country, and like most things in his life, he gave it his all. If he were here right now, he would say, keep moving forward. It's worth the effort. May God bless you all, Elaine Maiellaro. So, as we wrap up 2021, let us just continue to press forward with more determination than ever to elect as many FAIRtax candidates as possible in this upcoming election year of 2022. And hopefully we'll be talking to both of you gentlemen off and on some during the year. Thank you for your contributions.
Thank you very much, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
There you go. Randy said kind of about the same thing you did about Ron being a New Yorker, moving down to the South and just fitting in really well.
Yes, he just a super positive guy, Ron, and his wife together. What a great team. And I think that truly, they together, Elaine and Ron, just reflected to me the perfect team, the perfect couple, married, all about taking care of their families. And to have someone like him as a warrior for the FAIRtax, you can't do any better than somebody like Ron.
Yeah, well, he's the reason that I am part of the FAIRtax movement today, and he was really, of course, a founding partner of FAIRtax Power Radio. Everybody likes to say that if this was my baby, but if Ron wasn't there, this would never have gotten off the ground. So
and I'll say this, through how many years? 6 almost, close to 6,
close
right?
to 6, yeah.
We're coming into a time in the next several weeks where we'll be at 300 episodes.
Yes, that's upcoming.
Most of them with you and Ron, if not all of them.
Yeah, pretty close. No, you've had a few since August, but let's wait. Ron, we love you, we miss you, and we're going to get the FAIRtax passed in your honor. But as
Absolutely.
we continue with our 2021 wrap-up show on FAIRtax Power Radio, we've got to dig into the Tax Proposal Hall of Shame. Now, this is my favorite congress.gov segment on steroids for this one time. I could do the whole show just about on it. And usually we've collected these things just in chronological order as we run across them during the year. But these first 5 I have grouped together. They came over a span of about 6 months, but I grouped these things together because they all deal with the same subject. It's a subject that I'm, personally pretty well interested in. And it's also, what the heck is this doing in the tax code kind of thing? And we'll start off with HR 95. This was filed right out of the box on January the 4th, 2021 by Jeff Duncan in South Carolina. HR 95 is to amend the Internal Revenue Code to remove silencers from the definition of firearms and for other purposes. Now that kind of makes sense because silencers are not necessarily firearms per se, they're firearm accessories. But why do we have to have a definition of firearms in the tax code to begin with?
And as we go through this list, the Hall of Shame, you have to ask the question of why are any of them in the tax code? There's got to be something. And maybe we can ask Jeff Duncan, since he's kicked off the first of last year with the first HR 95, and maybe we can ask him what's the attraction to the FAIRtax what's the attraction to the code, to the IRS code? It just doesn't make any sense. I know what the attraction to the FAIRtax is, and as a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, that our guy there in South Carolina, Jeff Duncan, he's a co-sponsor of the FAIRtax.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, the reason we do this is we can show people how insane the tax code is already and is rapidly becoming, and that's the best argument we can make to get rid of it. So go ahead and hit that second item on the list here. Number
2, HR 1758. To amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to remove short-barreled rifles from the definition of firearms for purposes of the National Firearms Act for other purposes.
Now, that one doesn't make sense because short-barreled rifles are firearms, and you're going to remove that from the definition of firearms. So not only have we got a definition of firearms in the tax code, it's a really crazy one.
My goodness.
And right next to that one was filed in February, but it took them till July for Jeff Duncan to file this third one, which is HR 4312, to amend the Internal Revenue Code to remove short barrel shotguns from the definition of firearms for the purpose of the National Firearms Act and for other purposes. No silencers, no short barrel rifles, and no short barrel shotguns. But this next one, of all of the firearms related tax code proposal changes, this is my favorite one. Go.
HR 2466 to amend the Internal Revenue Code to include armor-piercing concealable weapons with the definition of firearm. Under the National Firearms Act.
So
for other purposes.
A silencer is not a firearm. A short-barreled rifle is not a firearm. A short-barrel shotgun is not a firearm. But an armor-piercing concealable weapon is. I want to know where I can get one of those. If I'm ever attacked by a tank in downtown Ocala, I want to be able to take it out. That's crazy.
Walking home from work the other day and came upon this tank.
Yes, and one more here in this group, HR 3823, to amend the Internal Revenue Code to update the definition of rifles and for other purposes. So they're going to remove the short barrel rifles, but then they're going to update the definition of the other kind of rifles, all within the tax code. Now, just exactly what does that have to do with collecting revenue for the government? Who knows?
Well, and that's the whole thing. It must be some secret thing that nobody knows about as to why there is a benefit to run all of these through the tax code. And maybe it's just the ease of doing it. I don't know. That's a question we need to ask.
I don't know, but moving right along here, this next one is the one that just really caught our attention when it came out. And this filed under "This is dangerous." Let's your turn, go.
HR 347 to amend the Internal Revenue Code to require the disclosure of tax returns of presidents and vice presidents and certain candidates for president and vice president and for other purposes.
So you can tell that was aimed at straight at one person, but it really doesn't matter. Your tax returns are private information. Some of the most sensitive data about you is in your tax return, which is why we need to get rid of tax returns entirely and replace them with a fair tax. But to make public disclosure of someone's most private data like that, even if they are running for the highest office in the land, is just not right.
Well, you have to think about your particular situation. As individuals, would we want our tax returns to be filtered out into the public for scrutiny? Probably not. But you want to put the fair tax on the fast track to get done. You go to your presidents and your vice presidents and the candidates, and you say, fair tax will put all of that to bed.
Yeah, well, we've had some fairly high-profile leaks of confidential tax returns over this past year. And, for political purposes. And I wonder, well, how much longer is it going to be before they start leaking the tax information of people who, contribute to a particular party or who belong to particular organizations? This whole thing, it's a slippery slope and it needs to go away really quickly. But continuing on down the list,
Yes.
HR 2305. This one almost makes you laugh. To amend the Internal Revenue Code to provide a refundable tax credit for seniors who install modifications on their residences that would enable them to age in place and for other purposes. The question is, if you don't install the modifications, do you stop aging? Now, maybe we're on to something here.
Well, that might be it. Hey, live a long life. Found the fountain of youth in St. Augustine, Florida. Take a trip over there and fill up a gallon or two and head back home and install some of these modifications. But a refundable tax credit, that means you get a, it sounds to me like it comes back to you depending on how much you spend.
That means if you owe zero tax and you get a $1,000 refundable tax credit, the government's going to give you $1,000. And not just offsetting tax, you get the full thing, whether you owe the tax or not. And I have been to St. Augustine, and there's nothing over there that fits into that thing. But this next one, I tell you what, this is what we've been making fun of on FAIRtax Power Radio for a long time, and I'm actually going to let you do the honors for this year.
Thank you. So I appreciate that so much. It's a state Senate Bill 1376, a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to modify the definition of municipal solid waste. Let's see.
Can you name any other country on the face of the earth that has the definition of municipal solid waste as part of their tax code? The companion House bill is HR 3879, by the way. But that is crazy. And clearly, there's a tax break for somebody that handles the stuff, and they have to define what the stuff is. But just the thought. The definition of municipal solid waste is part of your tax code. And I guarantee there's no other country anywhere that does this.
Can we call some of these sponsors up and just ask the staff what the heck is going on with why? Why is this going? What are you looking for here?
That would be an interesting one. And here's another one that just kind of makes you go, huh? This is S 1892, a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to modify employer provided fringe benefits for bicycle commuting.
Yeah.
So that means if you ride your bicycle to work down there in the Arts District of Winston-Salem, you could extract some kind of benefit from your employer there.
A bicycle pump maybe as a fringe benefit?
I have no idea.
High pressure air so they can make sure their tires are filled up.
This just looks like social engineering via the tax code. They're trying to encourage people to commute by bicycle.
Hey,
I'll tell you. So the transit
I have a bike that I use every once in a while. I sometimes bring it downtown here and ride around. as long as I don't get down into one of those little down the hill, too far where I'd have to walk it back up.
Now I can just see the bus drivers union and public transportation coming out against this because they're trying to encourage people to commute by bicycle other than by bus or whatever. That's just what a tangled web you weave when you start doing stuff with the tax code.
I would say I've seen municipal buses, the city buses with bike racks on the front of them. So you could explain that one too.
Oh yeah, we've got those here in Ocala. But this next one, I tell you, of all the ones on the Hall of Shame list, this one just makes me laugh.
HR 3758 to amend the Internal Revenue Code to provide a reduced excise tax rate for portable electronically aerated bait containers.
I have lived in Florida for decades, and I have never seen an electronically aerated bait container. Now that actually, Bill, came out of Florida.
In the bucket or something?
I don't know.
Fan motor down in and submerge it. And
there are a lot of people here in Florida that like to fish, and apparently Charlie Crist knows some of them, or he's gotten a lobbyist into him as well. That's Charlie Crist
sponsors there. Yeah, he's got 3 co-sponsors as of the introduction back in June of last year.
Yeah, but that was Charlie Crist. And this next one is just kind of you got to read it 5 times to make sure you understand what it says. To amend the Internal Revenue Code to support upgrades at existing hydroelectric dams and to remove the obsolete river obstructions to improve the health of the nation's rivers and associated wildlife habitat and increase clean energy production, public safety, and for other purposes. Now you just can't have a tax code that collects revenue for the government without that in it, can you?
Well, what are other purposes? I mean, everything's going to benefit other purposes. I'd like to know what the other purposes are. Is that just anything that they can come up with at a particular moment in the future that they could apply this particular rule to?
Oh, I don't know, but the tax code is providing
support place to be doing all this stuff.
Yeah, for upgrading existing hydroelectric dams, removing obsolete river obstructions, and promoting wildlife habitat, clean energy production, and all that. And the next one on the list is kind of similar.
Yes, it is. It's HR 4553 to amend the Internal Revenue Code to facilitate water leasing and water transfers to promote conservation and efficiency. Unfortunately, it's not for other purposes this go round.
Well, that one doesn't have other purposes on it. Yes, that's Ken Buck from Colorado. But there's a companion Senate bill for that one, S2383.
It's moving right along. Using the tax code for all of this is just and this is one of the reasons, folks, that we bring this up and why the other Bob is adamant about congress.gov on every episode that we can get it on, is because it's insane. It becomes, why are we doing?
Why is this in the tax code? I say we've always said that the best argument we can make for getting rid of the tax code and replacing it with a fair tax is to show people what's in it and what the Congress critters are trying to put in it. And
not that all of these become law, but this is where they start. This is where some of these ideas, kind of gain traction. I want to ask. I'm going to find out. I'm going to call one of these senators or one of these representatives, and I'm going to say, plain and simple, please explain to me why we are going through the tax code to do this. What's the reason?
Call Debbie Stabenow and ask her why she needs municipal solid waste defined in the tax code.
That's the best one to start with. I will report back.
That was her bill. Now, moving right along here, you hear a lot about tax exempt organizations, 501c3s, 501c4s. In order to qualify for a tax exemption, you have to exist for a qualified purpose.
Yes.
And usually it's educational or, something like that. But if this goes through, dig this, HR 6068, bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to include publication of written news articles as a tax exempt purpose for organizations and other purposes. Now that is I guess you can say that writing news articles can be educational. It's usually 501c3s are either educational or charitable, but you've got lots of folks. I looked at this and says the New York Times is fishing for a tax exemption here.
No kidding. And the part about the 4 other purposes and all of this, it just came to my attention. And I was sitting here listening to you read that last one. The 4 other purposes is a Pandora's box that could be opened at any time by anyone. If they can figure out something that they're working on and come back to any of these, I'm talking about the universe of all of these tax code amendment requests. It could be problematic at some point.
Okay, well, looks like the newspaper industry newspaper lobby is behind the next one.
Yeah. HR 6045 to amend the Internal Revenue Code to provide a tax credit for newspaper subscriptions.
I guess people are no longer subscribing to the hard copy news. They're getting it all online off their phone or whatever. And so now they're the social engineering aspect of the tax code. They're trying to encourage people to subscribe to newspapers once again. One more here, and this is one we actually came across not too awfully long ago here, HR 6183, to amend the Internal Revenue Code to provide for a credit against tax or refund of tax for certain federal insurance taxes for employees who are members of religious faiths which oppose participation in such insurance. Boy, you just can't have the tax code without that in it, can you?
Well, I'm opposed to taxes. Pretty much across the board. I know that the governments have to have revenue, but federal insurance taxes.
That's what it says.
Federal insurance taxes. Is there a line that I'm not reading in my tax bill that says federal insurance tax?
I don't know. You'll have to look at your next pay stub and see what that's all about.
Yeah.
But I say we got about a minute and a half here left on this episode. How do you like going through the Hall of Shade?
Oh, it's great. It's just shameful. It's just insane.
All right.
I'm sitting here going, what the heck? In other words, Debbie Stabenow, for those of you in Michigan, let her know that she'll be getting a call from Bob Scarborough, who will be asking a question about solid waste. And
I want to hear the results of that phone call when you get back to it.
I might get permission to record it.
Okay, well, we'll be doing this again for the entire 2022 year, and another year from now, we will be looking back at all of the craziness that tearing up like these.
Yeah, boy.
But that's crazy. We will do this every year on FAIRtax Power Radio, keeping an eye on the Congress critters and making the biggest case we can to get rid of the tax code, get all of that insanity out of our federal laws, and let that do that. We got about 30 seconds left. Let me encourage everybody that can again to come to CPAC. Join us down there in Orlando, Florida, on CPAC the 24th through the 27th of February, in sunny Florida, where it's freezing cold every place else, and help us get the FAIRtax message out in front of as many politicians and as many media people as we can. And that's going to wrap up this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Bob Scarborough.
The FAIRtax Guys, again, reminding you that the FAIRtax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
So, how much will I bring home?
Go ahead.
How much do you make? We'll just say 40,000. Okay, keep it simple, throw out the deductions, all that stuff. So you got your 40K, right? Now the first 8,000 is going to be taxed at 10%. The 8 to 33,000 is going to be taxed at 15%, and the 33 to 40, of course, is 25%. So that brings your total to $6,345.
Okay, so the average is what?
16%. Okay, and on top of that, you got Medicare, which is 1.5%, and then of course your Social Security, which is 6.2%. So actually, your new total is $9,405.
Which is
23.65%. You're getting it. You're getting it. Don't even get me started on what the boss has to pay. He's got to pay a portion of your taxes as well, so you don't have to.
Right. And you?
Oh, you bring home every